Be Monday of the most exciting week that you're ever going to have in your life. Why? I'm not sure. I'm hoping that's the way it's going to be.
I didn't know you were an astrologist. That was amazing.
Yeah, pretty much. That I read palms and tarot cards and all that shit too. That's actually how I make all my trading decisions, which is why you should never listen to anything I say. Ceara, how was your weekend? What's up?
It was amazing. It's funny that you talk about that, about astrology. I looked at making a joke, astrology, blockchain finance, TikTok, and there are too many people doing it for real. So if you need trading advice, follow them and not me.
There's actually a few that are like all into that. The one girl was a huge Maven or Mavis.
Maven.
She was a huge Solana fan and was talking about living in New York, and only if you own Solana can you afford to live in New York. And anyways, she was at the Avalanche Summit.
Cool.
Yeah, so a bunch of people.
Studies show that if you believe in your horoscope or your palm reading or whatever, that you're more likely to enact it. And maybe that type of manifestation comes true with news too. Maybe we're doing the same thing here.
Maybe we're making news. That's what we're doing. We're making the news. Ceara, what are we talking about?
Today we're going to make news that is about Bitcoin. Are you super bullish on Bitcoin or what?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, and then we're going to talk about the crypto arms race. This is ongoing from last week, but there's some fun new articles about it. And finally, we'll have a couple of some fails that made news over the weekend. This should be a little bit fun and a little bit sad. So get ready for some fails.
All right, we're back. You cut me off though, man.
Because you'll talk forever.
I know.
Bitcoin is so bullish right now, and I have so much on my newsfeed about Bitcoin. What is going on?
Yeah, so this is an interesting one. The former CTO of Coinbase, and now his name escapes me, of course. What was his name? Oh my goodness, let me find it because I don't want to screw this one up.
Balaji
Srinivasan. Sorry for messing that up. Anyways, relatively smart guy. He's been in the space for quite some time, and is 100% sure that we're going to enter near immediately into hyperinflation in the US and globally. And although I'm not sure I completely agree with that, because I think it would be in global government's best interest to ensure that doesn't happen, I'm not sure that we can avoid it either, because right now the options for the Fed in the US and many other regulators, central banks globally, is raise rates and worsen the banking problem, reduce rates, worsen inflation, or keep rates the same and hope that you can keep the Band-Aid on the giant hole in the hull of the boat for long enough to see this through. I'm just not sure. I'm not sure that I think we can completely avoid hyperinflation, but Balaji is saying hyperinflation is coming 1,000%. We're at $27,000 Bitcoin today. He bet $2 million. So putting some money where his mouth is, which for context, 2 million is a small piece of his portfolio. So it's not like he's putting up his entire net worth on this bet. So that might seem alarming to some people, but please don't be alarmed. Anyways, so $2 million, that Bitcoin's going to hit $1 million per coin by the end of the year. Now, if for some reason hyperinflation does happen, A. B, hyperinflation happens and people see Bitcoin as a safe asset other than fiat and all these other things because of hyperinflation, then maybe we could get there, because there's guesstimates that there's roughly 4 million Bitcoin that are lost forever. And there's, I think roughly 17 or 18 million in circulation right now. Numbers, forgive me for just making that up, but it's somewhere close to that. Anyways,
we can validate that on Twitter.
Yeah, we can validate it on Twitter. I can't remember the numbers. I read the article over the weekend. So, but anyways, it is possible. I mean, if that would put $1 million Bitcoin would put the market cap of Bitcoin at about 10 trillion. again, plus or minus a little bit. I think that was the number. And that's actually possible. You know, it's less than the market cap of gold. It's significantly less than the global market cap of fiat. But we're making some pretty big assumptions there. Like we're really exponentially speeding up the price appreciation. I don't know. Is it likely that some people will see Bitcoin as a safe haven? Maybe. I mean, it didn't happen with COVID, and it didn't happen with all the other challenges we've had in 2022. Bitcoin, everybody was saying Bitcoin is going to be the safe haven, and it wasn't. COVID happened, nothing. Normal inflation happened, nothing. Like Bitcoin actually continued to go down. It was seen as a high risk asset by most holders, in a sense, by most institutional holders that were willing to just dump all high volatility assets, try to shore up their balance sheet and keep money in cash. But now with the banking concerns, especially with regional banks in the US, I mean, all the large banks, too large to fail, have been backstopped essentially by FDIC and the federal government. But all of these regional banks aren't getting the same treatment. There is a subjective line of too big to fail and small enough that nobody cares. So this could be the catalyst. I don't know. Would I be betting?
A lot of these articles say that the dollar is dropping and that's why Bitcoin is raising. Seems like some false causation for me. I don't know.
I do think that there's probably a little bit of flight to Bitcoin from people that maybe already believed in Bitcoin. I just
don't think it's the entrance though. I don't think people
That's
are.
What I mean. That's what I mean. I don't think we're seeing a whole bunch of people that have never owned Bitcoin before. I don't know this. We should probably validate this somehow on chain or something if we can at some point. Or maybe someone smarter than us can comment below.
Let us know if we're idiots or not.
Let us know if there is some way that you've seen to track how much is new Bitcoin purchases versus old. I know there's ways, obviously, to check that. We just didn't do it. But long story short, I think it's just a lot of people that if you already hold Bitcoin and you're comfortable with it and you understand it, then moving some of your fiat reserves to Bitcoin for some people seems like a smart idea. The problem is it's not stable. It's a highly volatile asset. Now, if it does get to $1 million per coin and the market cap gets that high, it will be substantially more stable because there will be a lot more liquidity. But until then, it's going to be pretty volatile. And
it's also volatile. This is a really good segue. You know, I love them. It's also volatile because of the banking system, right? And this kind of leads us into the crypto arms race. So last week we talked quite a bit about the EU and Europeum and that kind of stuff. But we also talked about how the US banking system is kind of failing us in terms of crypto, but how there aren't any great partners right now, about how regulation is so uncertain and FU Gensler and all that kind of stuff. And so over the weekend, quite a few opinion and thought pieces came out about how we are going to see crypto leave the States. And that's really interesting because it has been agreed upon more or less that crypto has been the hub that the States have been the hub for crypto innovation for the last few years. So there were quite a lot of articles that kind of got pulled up. There are some new articles about Hong Kong. There's some new articles about Venezuela. And there are a lot of articles that are just fuddy on the US of A.
Yeah, I mean, idle hands, right? So like, you know, a couple of weeks ago, we had a lot of banking challenges. It was somewhat abated, I guess, at least for the short term. But there's been some more that have kind of silently been, you know, no one's really talking about some of the smaller ones, but it's starting to accumulate into meaningful amounts of capital that is being lost, especially shareholder value of those entities. And again, arguments could be made that those shareholders shouldn't see the upside because, you know, they should have over the course of the last couple of years been involved in risk management or oversight or whatever, making an investment decision. The problem with this whole banking thing right now is that, I mean, essentially what that's saying, what they're saying for all the banks that are beneath the too big to fail list is that as a depositor, you are charged with researching, analyzing, understanding the balance sheet and the interest rate matching and investment structures of a bank. Like, I mean, it was, and I'm quoting David Sachs here because this is his idea, not mine. But I mean, the regulators couldn't even figure it out soon enough to stop some of this, or to, like, they were like completely oblivious, it seems. And so, I mean, how on earth would you expect small business owners, startup founders? I mean, the last thing on your priority list, generally speaking, is understanding the financials of your banking institution. You go to a bank, you expect that, banking has been around and regulated for 4,000 years, not actually, but for a long time, that there's a certain level of safety. Like, when you put your money in a bank, your money's going to be there, period. And so anyways, I think it's just interesting. I think it's putting a lot of stress on small business in general, not just crypto. But kind of coming back to the regulatory piece and like a lot of the FUD around the Fed and around, the SEC and all this stuff. I mean, they're obviously not helping themselves. Like, they're making a lot of fairly large blanket statements that everybody's like, wait, what? Like, essentially Gensler, we talked about this last week, Gensler coming out and saying pretty much everything proof of stake is a security. Well, that's a pretty bold statement. Like, I mean, and without, like I said last week, let's assume that he's going to get that through somehow. I don't think he is, but let's just assume he does. Well, then what? Like, what is the alternate? How do people come into compliance? Because there's no structure, system, regulatory framework for, if all of these things had to be securities, where are they traded? Who trades them? Do you need a broker-dealer, money transmitter license? Do you need an ATS, or do you need a full registered securities exchange? Like, there's a lot of question marks that are very, very opaque right now. And I think, again, I live in the US, I live in Miami, and we moved here about a year ago because Florida in particular is quite crypto friendly, and the US was a lot more crypto friendly at the time than Canada, and a multitude of other reasons. But now we're starting to say, hey, like, this uncertainty is kind of making us second guess whether, as an entrepreneur in the space, it makes sense for us to live in the US. Now, we do everything that we possibly can to stay on the right side of everything, and we have way too many attorneys on retainer to help try to keep us, on the right side of things as they evolve. But there's not a lot of people that have the size of team that we have to be following this. We have experts in, regulation and understanding compliance that are on our team. Many startups don't. Many crypto startups don't.
People aren't afraid to move, right? With globalization, people aren't afraid to physically move like you did. And we're also not afraid to send our assets somewhere else. They're digital anyways. And so when we look at some of the comments being made, like the one that's highlighted right now, that we're suffocating dollar on-ramps, and that there were some really interesting opinion pieces about how maybe we'll get our hours restricted. It's a little bit big brothery. But with that type of FUD happening, with that fear, uncertainty, and doubt, we also see the Bitcoin euro pair jumping.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a few things with respect to that. The euro is obviously struggling, like same as the US dollar and so on. Like, the banking system, the economy, the energy crisis, the war, like, all of this stuff is kind of coming to a head. Hyperinflation potential, definitely significant and serious inflation currently. So, I mean.
No, but there's a lot here. So there's Europe. We talked about Europe a lot last week.
Yeah.
The week before, we talked about Australia, I believe, and Polynesia and Asia. And what they're looking at doing is having a new draft bill by the end of April, and then trying to push it through by June. So that's really fast. Hong Kong announced just last week and over the weekend that they're looking at introducing new rules in June as well. So that's a really big deal, because Hong Kong is probably going to be the compass for China. And China just yesterday, announced that they're happy to back Russia to maintain world order. So that's cool. And we heard from a crypto group in Russia about 2 weeks ago as well, pushing for them to be a crypto hub and innovation center. And then finally, over the weekend, I believe it was March 17th, so Friday, Venezuela announced that they are pushing forward to improve their crypto department. Basically, a bunch of people who were in their crypto department before were illegitimate and scammy and that sort of thing. And so they have actually pushed them all out, and they're looking forward to establishing a new crypto department so that they can be more legitimate, so they can protect their citizens as well. So now there's America, and America's saying, whoa. Well, Hong Kong, Australia, the EU, potentially China, Venezuela, Brazil, so on and so forth. They're all moving forward, and the States and Canada are just sitting ducks in a way, right?
Yeah, I mean, you have to take some of that with a grain of salt. I mean, Venezuela is still, in all senses of the word, a dictatorship. So they, obviously can make unilateral decisions that people don't necessarily have a say. There might be regulation. Is it going to be prohibitive? Is it going to be encouraging? Like, who knows what they're going to do? They have talked a lot about continuing to expand on the concept of the CBDC in Venezuela in particular. And there's a lot of speculation that that's because of oversight and control, because their currency is effectively worthless. So, I mean, some of this we got to take with a grain of salt, but at the same time, we're seeing, a lot of global governments at least attempting to make, some movement here. And although it's the number one priority for us, I think, the federal government, just to give them a little bit of credit, I don't often do this, but to give them a little bit of credit, I mean, they've got a lot of shit on their plate right now. Trying to deal with this banking crisis, trying to deal with inflation, trying to somehow sort out these crazy budgets, the war, like there's ideological challenges. Ideological challenges in the US. Like I live in Miami, as I said a minute ago, and in South Beach this week, there's like crazy. There's a curfew because there was 2 murders during spring break. Generally it's one of the worst and most dangerous weeks of the year in Florida because everybody flocks here for spring break, and so do all the drug dealers. And so there's a lot of turf wars and a lot of weird crap happening. But anyways, if you go on social media, you'll see some videos in Miami Beach where they're just like demolishing cars, and the public is starting to just kind of go a little crazy. Look at France right now. I mean, there's a lot going on.
There are bigger issues. There are issues that are more pressing to the average citizen. So when we see something like crypto regulation taking a long time, it makes a lot of sense. And when a different when a different country is pushing forward crypto regulation quickly, I wonder what they're distracting from. And I wonder what's going on with their citizens, right?
And why? Why are they pushing this?
Yeah, you have to look at it from a full ecosystem point of view. But all of that said, the states are still lagging behind what we are seeing in the news from other countries. Although
the named Loomis Gillibrand draft bill will apparently be submitted in April, there is very little, if any, consensus that it'll actually have a chance of passing, especially the Senate. Even though it's a slight Democrat majority, there's a lot of Republicans that just aren't supportive of crypto in general. And I mean, who knows what Biden? Who knows what Biden will do? But he probably doesn't know either. Someone will tell him and he'll sign. But anyways, it's interesting. I know we talk a lot about regulation, but right now it's the biggest source of FUD. Not necessarily FUD. Like some of it's accurate, some of it's legitimate, but then there is some hyperbole in FUD, which is.
But I think this is good to talk about because, like you say, we need to pick out what is correlated. What's caused and where we need to use our critical thinking hats, right? And quite a few of the articles that are coming out about regulation right now are actually based on really old regulation, really old in crypto space, things that are about a year old. I found a couple of articles referring to things that the EU did last year. And like, that's really great for context, but it isn't news and you need to be critical of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
With that being said, there are a lot of other news fails and I would like to talk about 2 of them.
Okay, but first, shout out to our friends at Halborn. Security provider, smart contract audits, ongoing security, pen testing, all that stuff. Great guys. Rob and team, amazing dudes. Love the shirt. Some of the nicest swag that exists. So thanks, Halborn. Quick shout out.
Yeah, does it feel nice? Does it fit your shoulder?
Yeah, it's like one of those like kind of soft cotton ones that like really hugs you nicely. And
we're going to start doing fans of you just touching crypto merch.
Yeah, so somebody's going to make a meme out of this. But anyways, okay, fails.
Okay,
let's
2 big
go.
fails. One, I actually really enjoyed this article. I would suggest taking a look at this article. It was well written. It was well researched. But at CoinDesk, there was a great article about NFTs at the Louvre. And basically, this giant artist, Claire Silver, announced on Twitter that her NFTs were going to be displayed at the Louvre during Blockchain Week. And very shortly afterward, the Louvre said, no.
They're not.
And now, just for a little bit of context, it isn't out of place for her work to be displayed at a very massive, beautiful art museum in that way. It's not out of place for NFTs to be displayed. The Puppet-Zoo, the MoMA, as you see at the bottom, these places have been having NFT kind of celebrations or events or very small galleries. And the artist Claire Silver herself has actually sold some really large, some large paintings, some large exhibition pieces to typical art buyers. So it wouldn't be out of place. It would be normal for this to be the thing. It would be something she could be really excited about. And the reason that I like this article so much is that it talks about the unknowns, talks about who didn't know what, and it actually gets direct quotes. This author gets direct quotes from herself, from a coordinator at the Louvre. And then this was supposed to be part of a festival which Super Chief was running. So Super Chief is a gallery blockchain, I think. And Super Chief also commented. So they really did their due diligence to find out who said what and why, which is something that we don't always see in crypto news.
So it's definitely a fail. But it's a well-researched fail.
It's a well-researched fail.
I wonder why. Christie's and the large auction houses have leaned in, so to speak, to NFT sales, or at least understanding the value as a art form to a certain extent. And I'm interested. Again, the Museum of Modern Art and many other places are exhibiting NFTs. I've seen them, in smaller exhibits.
Clarity, the Louvre didn't say we're never doing it. But essentially, what's been discerned is that Blockchain Week Paris is getting put together. The Louvre was listed as a potential venue, but it was not validated. When Super Chief saw the Louvre on that potential venue list, they told artists that they may be able to have their art at the Louvre. There was just some poor communication, right? It could be language barrier. It could be assumptions. It could be really pedantic language like potential venues include as opposed to verified venues. So yeah, the Louvre didn't even talk about this unkindly. They just were like, sorry for anything misleading. We actually are not participating in Blockchain Week this year as a venue. So there wasn't any malintent. Claire Silver wasn't trying to get a bunch of fake followers or something like that. Nobody had any malintent. There was just a huge miscommunication, which makes this terrible, but also I'm really glad somebody researched it and presented an article in such a way that it was a miscommunication instead of pointing super fuddy fingers and being like, Super Chief lied to all artists or the Louvre anti-NFT. So I do appreciate this article. It's like the least fuddy article about a super fail, and I wanted to highlight the good research about it.
Yeah. It's also probably worth noting that NFTs, given all of the turmoil over the last year, has become kind of a bittersweet space, I guess, for a lot of people. Like us that are in crypto, of course, we believe in the future of NFTs and the power of what they're actually doing. But the general public, I think, and in particular, these curators, museum curators and different people have heard a lot of the horror stories, probably more so than the good things, especially in the last little bit. There's a lot of people that got duped by influencers, bought a whole bunch of collections at the top, and are now holding very heavy bags that may never get back. So, I kind of understand, even the creator economy on Instagram and so on is quite reluctant to participate in NFT stuff at the moment.
Well,
not to mention
Meta pulled NFT support. They don't really have an option now.
Well, now, yeah. They're doubling down on AI and the metaverse still, so we'll see. But anyways, I know there was another one. What's the other one?
Yeah, our final fail is a footy fail. So the reason that I pulled this one up, I thought it was really interesting, is it did just recently get published, and it probably got published because of the news from Venezuela. Likely people were looking for other South American news, but this is actually a fail. This is a scam that has been going on for a couple of years. And it was about a year ago that it was actually reported to police. So this is old news made new news, essentially. And it's not evergreen. It's not like they just pulled out an old article. They went and they did their due diligence. They did the research now because, I don't know, a slow news weekend, apparently. So basically what happened is there are some football players, some soccer players for North Americans. There are some footy players, and
footy. I'm going to fact check you on that. Footy is actually a different game. But go ahead. Who knew?
Footy's not soccer in Europe?
No. I don't believe so. In Australia, it's for sure a different game. Footy is
in Australia, it's a different game. In Europe, football
they call it footy.
It's soccer. Yeah.
All right. Football, yes. But footy
No, I'm
Oh,
for
maybe,
sure.
maybe. I believe you.
Soccer.
I have no reason not to.
Soccer.
Okay, go ahead. Soccer. Anyways, go ahead.
So these players, they make a lot of money, which is great for them, and they wanted to do something with that money. And the article states that one player convinced two other players to invest in essentially a DEX, and that DEX was supposed to have a 5% yield for them as investors, and all of them lost their money. And so the player who is accused of essentially setting them up also lost his money. He said he didn't set anybody up. He didn't know. And this is actually being branded in Brazil as a pyramid scheme. And so having crypto branded as a pyramid scheme is not ideal for us, obviously. But they believe that it had nothing to do with crypto and it was essentially a Ponzi.
Awesome. Well, that's exciting. I hadn't seen that article until right before the show. I mean, it happens a lot, right? You get a lot of these pro athletes and different people, especially outside of, super well-established Western economies, where they don't have the same advisors and, legal counsel and people keeping them safe, so to speak, from this kind of crap. And they're the biggest targets, right? Like they're the biggest targets for fake watches and, luxury items that aren't real or that were stolen or whatever, because they have so much money and they're so busy, and generally their due diligence is relatively low unless they have third parties. So, I mean, the advice here, and this is actual advice, is get advisors, get proper advisors, people. Like if you don't know what you're doing, make sure you find someone who is licensed and capable of helping you. Not me, but that would be the advice there. But hopefully that blows over and
one of the reasons I found this really interesting is we work hard to not call things Ponzi's in crypto. And then here we have a scam that probably isn't a crypto scam, but is a Ponzi scam being branded as crypto. It's a little bit backwards for us, but how can we, as those who work in legitimate crypto, what are we supposed to do when these things come out, right?
Yeah, I mean, the word Ponzi is used quite a bit, right? Like, and it's affectionately used by kind of crypto Twitter as like, when's the next Ponzi? Because everybody, if you know how to play a Ponzi, you can get in, make money, and get out. I think it's a horrible strategy, but it's definitely something that is overused as a phrase. In this case, it happens to be accurate, but now it's being convoluted with a million other terms and titles. Anyways, pretty boring weekend relative to the last few weekends. I think there was like very little kind of exciting stuff. I followed the Balaji thing. I followed the Balaji Bitcoin thing quite a bit because I was just like, really? And surprisingly, there's a fairly substantial amount of people that agree with his position, which we'll see. I mean, if Bitcoin gets to $1 million, it's game on for us. So of course, I'm hopeful that happens. It seems kind of crazy. I mean, it's 20x almost its previous all-time high.
This was a pretty pleasant Monday news, actually. Like, this was probably the most pleasant weekend recap we've gotten to have. Yeah. I appreciate that we got to take a deep breath this weekend as opposed to the constant.
Yeah, it's also spring break, so maybe everybody's just like, forget it. We're just out of here. But anyways, episode, what is it? 24. Episode 24 in the books. Ceara, go FUD yourself.
Go FUD yourself, JD.
Everybody, like, subscribe, do all that shit at the bottom. Pound the bell, whatever the different buttons are. Every day, same time, 12:30 Eastern. But if you pound all that stuff, you get notifications, subscribe, and all that crap.
You can watch them after too. It's okay.
You can watch them after, but man, is it nice to watch live, because we are live. I say dumb shit all the time. We don't cut it out. It's live.
If people watch on YouTube or Twitch, they can comment and we'll live answer it also.
That is also true. Yeah, if you comment on Twitch or where was it? YouTube. Yeah, the comments come right into the platform that we use here, so kind of awesome. And we'll answer questions and deal with things. And if you want to tell us that we're crazy or have to fact check us, let's do it. Let's hear it. Obviously, we don't want to report anything that's inaccurate. So that's it. Everybody, have a wicked Monday, and we'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, JD.